Woo!
Good evening and welcome to another episode of A Real Point of View. My name is Greg Morgan and I am the Real Movie Guy. And joining me are my cohorts in crime and moviedom, the crew. Hey everybody.
Yay!
Got Larry Demkowski, the must-see movie critic.
Woohoo!
Karen D, the movie maven herself. And Mr. Steven Z, he's a guy who doesn't pick a bad movie. Copy that. We are here today to talk about scenes from movies that make the movie for you. What scene really captured the essence of the movie that you were about to watch or were watching that just was the epitome of the essence of that film? We want to talk about those kind of films today, those moments. They're not necessarily big moments. They're not necessarily small moments. It's just moments in time that have given you that impetus to really watch the rest of this film and really love this film, something that brought it out to you. So, welcome everybody to another Friday night, hanging out together, trying to figure out movies that we want people to see and what was our inspiration to these movies and these scenes of the movies. Anybody want to go first?
I'll go first.
Oh,
he called it.
yep.
I'll go first.
Suck out all of Greg's fun.
Well,
That's all right.
I'm going to start with a movie that came out in 1986.
Oh, a young movie.
Yeah. And it stars Deborah Foreman and Sam Jones. This movie, Sam Jones is he'd be a billionaire today. He's a very rich person and he has chauffeurs and he hires this one young lady to be one of his backup chauffeurs, Deborah Foreman. And she just doesn't understand the whole world of how everything is supposed to be done and getting manicures and pedicures and men getting manicures and pedicures. She just doesn't get that. And there's a scene in this film. She's obviously had an effect on Sam Jones. He's been a jerk, an ass, you know what, and just a very not likable person. But she rubs off on him a little bit, and he starts realizing that he's been a total, you know what, to everyone in his life. And so there's a scene in this film where he's trying to make amends. And so what he does is he brings in one at a time the people who have worked for him. And one of them is his executive secretary. She's been with him from the beginning. And for the first time, he asks her how she is. And she doesn't know what to think. She thinks this is a trap. And then he says, you have a child, right? And she starts crying. Yeah, now there are some actors and actresses who make their entire living by crying. She might be one of them. But how she comes across in these tears of finally being able to be herself in front of the person she's worked for all these years is amazing. And this movie is not a great movie. There's some moments in it, and that's one of the moments. There's another moment in there because the movie also stars Penn and Teller. And there's a moment in there where Teller is playing his normal self, doesn't talk, and he's a sheik. And Penn Jillette is playing a con man. And at the very end of that little thing, you know, Teller does something very kind to Penn, and it's just again a moment. And this film has two moments that are really very well done. They're well shot. There's a lot of production value in those two moments, and they're very real. And for those reasons, I like this movie. I like watching it because of those little tidbits.
Copy that.
Interesting.
How about you, Steve?
All right. Let's really get in here.
Okay. Now,
So-
ladies and gentlemen, before Steve gets started, we were having like a little powwow, and Steve said something that made me look a little estranged, made me feel aback. So I don't know if this is that moment. Okay, Steve.
Dun, dun, dun.
This movie was made in 1997. I have enjoyed it since the day I first saw it. It is ridiculous. It's not really a movie you suggest to people unless they're looking for something where it's like, hey, I want to watch something that it's going to make me laugh, and I'm also going to look at the screen going, why are they even doing this? And Greg has told me multiple times of his dislike for this movie.
Oh, please. Oh, no.
And from the opening scene,
No.
this movie had me.
Don't do it,
It
Steve.
had me from the opening song in which the lead actor in the movie is singing.
Sounds like he's talking about cats.
No,
No.
I'm talking.
Although,
I'm talking. I'm
although
talking-
that movie wasn't one of my better moments, I like the play much better than the movie.
I am talking about the pet
Oh, I knew it! John Leguizamo!
with John.
Oh!
I think the gauntlet's been thrown, Greg.
John Leguizamo is a great actor and is a great comedian.
He
and
is.
in a lot of the roles that he is in is just
Except that
amazing.
one.
As you can see, someone's a tiny bit salty about this, but that's okay.
I'm not a tiny bit salty, Steve. I'm pretty salty.
He's all of the salt.
In fact,
mean,
me and Morton are like best friends right now.
I'm sensing some pepper in there too.
We are not even in the same location, and I can taste it in the air.
And it's not even the rap group. Salt and pepper.
But it's just from the opening scene, the opening song of this movie, you understand you're in for something ridiculous. You're in for something that, and the weird thing is this movie has plot. And the ending of this movie is actually smart in the way that it does it. Now, you've seen
Wait a
it
minute.
time and time again.
I'm sorry, did you say smart?
Yeah, the ending of this movie was smart in its presentation because you've seen that scene in every movie that's of that type. It's just the good guy getting that one over on the bad guy right in front of his face, and nobody's the wiser. And it really does a good job in that sense, but it is a ridiculous movie. And the opening scene, the opening song is just going to set the tone for the movie. And that, every time I hear it, every time I see it, I actually listen to just the song sometimes, and it's just so good. And it sets the tone, and it really does it for me. The fact that Greg doesn't like this movie makes it hold an even bigger spot in my heart because it drives him insane how much I like this movie. And how I could literally talk about this movie and go over what's smart about it, but I'm not going to do that to him. I'm not.
Can I
gonna
hear
do
a
that.
rebuttal?
You can't. The only rebuttal he will ever have, and only has ever had, that movie's stupid. It's stupid. It's not good. It's stupid.
So, in the midst of presenting the movie and mocking me, by the way,
It's a twofer.
because it's actually stupid, Steve.
See?
It's a stupid,
See?
stupid movie.
See? See?
And I'm not even saying that just because you said I would say that, because we've had this conversation.
I know, and it
And I've
ends the
been trying
exact
to
same
get you to
way. That
understand how
movie's stupid.
stupid this
It's
movie
stupid.
is.
It's so
And
stupid.
I cross my arms like that typically too when I'm saying it.
It's so
Because they're crossed right
stupid.
now. I just
It's-
uncrossed them.
It's like he's a genie granting a wish. It's stupid.
No, it's not. It's stupid. It is not
See?
that good.
It's so
Oh
good.
my God.
It's amazingly ridiculous.
I agree with you
Here's-
there.
I mean, when you get down to it, I mean, Rotten Tomatoes gives it only an 8%.
Oh my God.
I never said it was a good movie.
But
and
I said it was
interestingly
good.
not that much.
Interestingly enough, hang on.
interestingly enough, about 80 to 90% of the people who watch it like it.
Critics, us, we don't know what we're talking about.
Yeah,
have
we
no
do.
idea what's going on. We 0% this. We have made such a mockery of so many good movies. And I feel like The Pest may be one of them.
So, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, which is our viewers, right, Greg?
Yep.
Yes,
People
surely.
should make up their own minds, or they can listen to us.
But
I'd say leave a comment. Leave a comment.
I am not suggesting you do this of your own voluntary will.
So leave a comment
Go, my
if
children.
you decide to watch this movie that Steve has so richly reintroduced into your life. That's going to waste a lot more time than it is anything else. If you decide to do that, because again, he's only talking about a scene. He's not saying the whole movie, because the rest of the movie.
I'm talking about a scene that sets the movie.
Yeah. Okay. How does that even happen?
Hey.
Okay, so Steve, I got to ask you a question now. I honestly can say that I've never seen this film. All right,
Lucky
but-
you.
but there is a scene of a guy singing in the film that you could cut it out and you could just make the film 1,000 times better. And that's when Clint Eastwood sings in
I talk to the trees.
yeah,
Oh my God.
when he sings to Paint Your Wagon. I talk to the trees.
Yeah, well, except that he didn't hit a note during that entire song. He wasn't on pitch for one note during that entire song.
He even modulated by accident about 40 times. So
Oh my God.
Hang on. Please continue, Karen. This is what I live for. Because you're doing what Greg does.
What am I doing? I don't have an
It's
opinion on the
stupid.
past.
It's so stupid.
I
It's
didn't.
stupid.
No, I
It's
just said
terrible.
Clint
It's
Eastwood
stupid.
couldn't sing a note, and I talked to the trees from Painting Your Wagon. But no, actually don't have an opinion on the past. I've never seen it. But I will agree with you about John Leguizamo. I mean, he would elevate reading the phone book. He's so good. So
he is
Look,
good.
let
He's
me say this very honestly. I love John Leguizamo. I think he's a great actor. I think he sometimes gets in movies where I think he should have a better role. But he takes that supporting role and makes a gem out of it,
Mhm.
except in The Pest.
That's because he takes the leading role and makes a gem out of it.
Yeah, Jim Shoes.
Okay, gentlemen, I want you to turn
Now, kids.
your backs together, and I want you to walk 10 feet, 10 steps, and then turn and fire.
No, you need to reach across the Zoom screen, shake hands, and come out fighting. No,
Hey,
and
wait, here.
make up.
Touch gloves.
6 feet.
Touch gloves.
As my great-great-great-grandfather once said, that movie was stupid.
I love it when a plan comes together.
He knew in the future it would be stupid. And he was right. Again.
Wow.
I kind of wish I'd have started the show now.
Hey, and you know what? Yeah, honestly,
I am the
haven't
reason
seen
we're
it.
going to have an episode 2.
One of these days, we'll have have an episode where we're talking about movies you want to avoid at all costs.
Or just really stupid movies.
Wouldn't that be the same episode if we only talked about one movie?
Okay, put
I
that
feel-
eyebrow
I feel-
down.
I feel like
Okay,
I
I'll
feel
put
like
this
we
one
should
up.
see. I
No,
feel
yeah,
like we should
that
just watch
eyebrow.
it.
That's your better eyebrow.
I feel like we should just watch the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's what we call a hostage situation, but okay.
Okay.
Hey Greg, do you have a movie?
Yeah, Greg.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
I gotta dust this pest off. Okay. My movie is not.
You
the
know,
best.
if you're still salty, I can talk about my movie.
Why don't you go ahead and talk about your movie, Karen, as long as it's not The Pest.
It's not. I feel as if I should bring a spiritual element to this rock'em sock'em conversation.
It's stupid.
Yeah, right. Right. You're right. So, in a futile attempt to elevate the tone of conversation around here, I will mention the first movie that I want to bring up, which is The Song of Bernadette.
It's stupid.
No, it is not. It's religious.
Oh man!
It's a religious movie, although she does do some kind of stupid things in the movie.
Well,
Jennifer Jones, starring Jennifer Jones. This is the first movie, ironically, in which she actually appeared as Jennifer Jones. Before that, she was Phyllis. I can't remember her last name. Started with an S. But anyway, she got the role in The Song of Bernadette, and that's the first time she was billed as Jennifer Jones. It's also the only movie for which she won an Oscar. Even though she was nominated numerous times, this is the only one for which she won the Oscar for Best Actress in a Leading Role. And she was married to David O. Selznick at the time, who used his influence to make sure that she got that role. And since he was, at least on his worst day, he was a 900-pound gorilla, people said, okay, Mr. Selznick, you want me to jump? I will jump exactly as high as you want me to jump. You want Jen in that role? Jen's got that role. Even though Anne Baxter was considered, and Anne Bancroft, not Anne Baxter, Anne Bancroft was considered, and there were other just A-list actresses considered for this role, and it's like, no, it's Jen's. As it turned out, she got the Oscar, so maybe not such a bad thing. Anyway, the movie is about a poor girl in France who and she's with her sisters in a field or something, and she sees a vision of the lady. And she has this vision numerous times. And the fact that she has this vision becomes a sensation in her small village where she lives. And at some point, the Catholic Church gets involved because people are clamoring for this girl's commitment to an insane asylum. Because the fact that, why they can't just leave her alone? So what if she sees things? Why is that anybody else's business? But the whole town was really involved.
Who's the vision of?
The lady.
What lady?
That's what she called her, the lady.
The lady.
That is what she called her. And that's part of the story. It's that she was questioned. She was questioned numerous times by the prosecutor, who was played by Vincent Price, very admirably, I might add. Charles Bickford played the resident priest for that parish, and who was very disparaging of her at first, but then became one of her biggest supporters. I guess people got a little concerned when they saw her eating grass. And, okay, that's not something you normally do. But she was eating grass to create the stream. And the stream became the Spring of Lourdes. And then a chapel was built there eventually. But anyway, I guess the preamble, I'm going into all this because this is it's a more interesting movie than it looks to be on the surface. It's almost 2.5 hours long. It's very captivating, even if you're not a religious person. I think Jennifer Jones does do a great job of acting in it, I think, and Charles Bickford he's just such a good supporting actor. He really is terrific. And it's this film is based on a true story. And there was actually a book called The Song of Bernadette, which documented, with some fiction added, the real life of Bernadette Soubirous, who became canonized as a saint. And she died at age 35. She was sickly all of her life. But ironically, and this is very weird, she died, I want to say she died late 1879 is when she died. Her body was exhumed in the early 1900s, and the church authorities said that her body was incorrupt. In other words, no no deterioration of her body had taken place in those 20 years that she'd been dead. So further evidence that she really did deserve to be a saint. And then they exhumed her several more times after that, and she still looked good. So, which, you know, gives the whole, like, you
I
know,
assume so.
die young, die young and leave a good looking corpse, a whole new meaning. But
I wonder if that's where Dick Clark got for years his ability to stay so young.
he may have.
So what's the moment? What's the
Yeah.
moment?
Ah,
the
yes. Let me
scene.
get to the moment. I'm sorry. This preamble was fascinating to me, so I had to do that. So anyway, so there's this one scene. Okay, she after all the visions in the movie, she decides that she wants to be a nun, and so she becomes like a
Novice.
novice. Yes, a novice at this particular, whatever they call the nun places. So, so she goes there.
Convent. It's a convent.
Oh, convent, sorry.
Well, it could
she
be an abbey too. So I mean,
Could be an abbey.
It was a convent.
Could be an abbey, convent. So she goes to the convent, and everybody loves her except for the one nun, this old crusty nun who has just knocked herself out being of service to the convent, to the Lord, to, you know, she's done everything she's been asked and then some. And this little young flipperty-gibbet who looked a lot better than she did waltzes into the convent.
I know, Steve.
and she gets like
Can
she
you say
does.
that so many times fast?
Hey, what?
she
A flippity did
A flippity gibbet.
walks into the convent and gets all this love, like gets all this like, whoa,
it.
Bernie's on it. We love Bernie.
I gotta write this shit down.
Flippity gibbet, you can find that in The Sound of Music.
Oh my God, this is,
And the
I've
Sound of
completely
Music and
derailed this.
Song of Bernadette.
I'm completely
Both
derailed
have
this.
nuns.
Yeah, well, there you go.
So continue.
That's a good point. And the Hills were alive in both films.
Well, they were, yes, but yes. But anyway, so she gets all this love, mad love.
G-I-B-I-T?
Yes, that is.
So
she gets all the mad love from everybody in the convent except for the nun who is just seething with rage. Seething with rage. So my scene is, there's a continuing thing about how you have to suffer. You have to suffer. You have to suffer. If you're really devoted to the Lord, you can only show that by suffering without complaint. That was what the older nun kept saying.
And eating grass wasn't enough, right?
This was after she ate the grass.
being a flippity gibbet wasn't enough.
No, it was not. So at one point, Bernadette is sort of limping a bit, but she's doing her work and she's scrubbing floors. She's doing her work very hard. And the older nun is like, well, you know, what's wrong with you? You know, I mean, why are you limping like that? Or are you just pretending or something like that? And she said, well no, I there's nothing wrong. I'm happy to continue my work. There's absolutely nothing wrong. I'm totally paraphrasing here, but anyway, that's basically what she conveyed. And the older nun is like, well, no, you're just trying to get more attention the way you've always been. I can't stand you. I can't stand the way you've been like getting all this mad love from people. And she finally convinces Bernadette to lift the hem of her
Garment.
Her habit.
Her habit.
It was a bad habit.
She's trying to get her to kick the habit.
Oh God. She finally convinces Bernadette to lift the hem of her garment, and then the look on the older nun's face is like, oh my God, this is horrible. Because I guess her leg was completely disfigured because she had tuberculosis of the knee. And so her knee was completely, completely malformed, deformed. And so it was actually quite curious as to how she was able to walk or do any work at all. She was suffering, and the pain must have been excruciating. So that's when the older nun finally understood that Bernadette was a sacred person who was favored by God in a way that she wasn't.
It's a miraculous, it really is a miraculous scene. That scene makes everything work in that film. Everything is, and if you look at how the visual narrative of that film is structured, everything goes to that scene. You know, and that's the one missing piece. It's a great choice, Karen.
Good choice. I'll be honest, I saw the Song of Bernadette when I was younger, and I'd seen it twice. And I think the first time I saw it, I didn't truly understand it because I was pretty young. So I took the opportunity to see it again. And the meaning and the understanding of what was going on and the things that she had gone through, and yet she kept a civil tone, civil face, civil everything throughout the whole. And she never worried about what people would say or do. She was devout, and she was kind.
I lost all of what you said because everybody froze. Larry was in the middle saying something, and he froze, and then everybody else froze.
Well, I'm hoping that people watching heard everything I said.
Oh, no, I was just wondering what Larry was going to say.
All I said was that it was a great choice. The entire the visual narrative of that entire film comes right to that point. Without that point, the film doesn't work. But it works, but it would be a very different film.
It'd be a very different film.
And that's a good synapse point, and then it expands out again. It's a brilliantly shot film, brilliantly edited and brilliantly acted, and that scene is the fulcrum point for that entire film.
Yeah, so that's my scene in that movie. And I grew up watching that movie, and it used to be one of my favorite movies. I just thought it was marvelous. And I know people who've gone to Lourdes to looking, for relief from their malady, their diseases or whatever. And I mean, people have said that they've been cured.
And you can write Lourdes or go to them online, and they'll send you a vial of water.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Greg, your turn.
My turn. Okay, so let me set in motion the movie that I was thinking of. My scene only takes about 37 seconds. This movie came out in 1973. It was actually one of the first movies that I ever bought, ironically on VHS. And it was pretty expensive back then because not as many people had videotape recorders to watch things on. But it was coming into style, obviously. But to set the scene up, this guy goes to a tournament, a martial arts tournament, for a lot of different reasons. One, to understand a place where his sister lost her life. Two, as a spy, to see what was going on at this tournament that is given every year. And it's not just a tournament for martial arts, it's a recruitment tournament for espionage. But this moment in the film, this 37 seconds, for me, watching this film, sets the tone for the rest of the movie. Up until this point, the movie's okay, but it really didn't spark anything that the essence of what these martial arts movies should spark. So this movie is Enter the Dragon, starring Bruce Lee. So Bruce Lee is on the island where the tournament is. He's in his private room. He is getting ready, stretching, just focusing on his chi, getting all these things, and he's moving around. And then he has this moment where he sticks his leg out and he's holding it in the air for a long period of time. And there's a knock on the door. A person opens the door and it's his nemesis, the person that caused his family pain. And so he's staring this guy down while he still has his leg in the air. And the guy says something to the amount of, the tournament starts at such and such time and you're supposed to be dressed and down there at such and such time. And Bruce Lee says it, and it really, the essence, and you can see the angst in his face, and he goes, and he just looks at him and peers at him, like looking almost like through him. He goes, outside. And he just looks, the guy at the door looks, and then closes the door. And then Bruce Lee turns, puts his leg down, and in the matter of 1 second, throws 4 punches. He stands there, he emotes in his fury, and he goes, and I knew then that this movie was gonna really start getting better. That scene made it for me. 37 seconds of him being calm prior to that, and as soon as that guy opened the door and he saw who it was, because he knew who it was, his mind went, and it just twisted him up and it made him infuriated. But I love the way he said it and the look on his face, and he's like, outside. Didn't have to say more than one word. His authority, his strength, his power, it was all evident in that 37 seconds. So Bruce Lee and Bill Wallace, and Bill Wallace was, his character, which is O'Hara, was very impactful in the Bruce Lee's sister losing her life in this movie. So 37 seconds in that movie, Enter the Dragon, outside. Love it. And from then on, the movie just went and kept going and going and
And
going.
you're right. You're right. That was such a cool scene too. Just because up to that point, people just have heard. Most of us just heard of Bruce Lee. We didn't see him. That, you know, unless you were really into that genre of film, that film made him an international superstar.
Or the Green Hornet. That's where I remember Bruce Lee.
I remember him from Green Hornet too.
He was amazing. He was the only reason I watched the Green Hornet.
Exactly.
I didn't give a crap about Van what's his face. It was Bruce Lee.
And it was my favorite moment when they were on the crossover TV show with Batman and Robin, and he beat the crap out of Robin. It was hilarious.
Yeah. What a Green Hornet said to Kato, you know, something like, "Take it easy on Robin. Remember, they're our allies, really." And what does Bruce Lee say?
Gung fu is gung fu.
That's it. That's beautiful.
Oh yeah. And I took gung fu as a child. So very interesting.
Which was just last week.
Yes, it was. That's a little private thing, ladies and gentlemen. It's obviously not so private anymore. Okay. Well, you know what? We are coming to the end of this episode. So this is going to be a 2-part episode, ladies and gentlemen, of looking at scenes that made the movies for us. So let's go ahead and we're going to end this tonight, ladies and gentlemen, and go to our next episode and bring you more of the scenes that made movies for us. So thank you again for tuning in to us here on A Real Point of View. Leave any comments that you have on this show and also future shows that you want to see and things you want us to critique and talk about. But right now we're going to get out of here and go to part 2 of the scenes from movies that make the movies for you. All right. See you guys later. Thanks again for joining us, and join us for our next episode. Peace out.
Peace.
Peace.